Chapter 11, The Black Death. All the kids in the class started sniggering when the headmaster used the word dropping, except Zoe. "Someone did a poo on the toilet floor, sir," asked one of the boys, laughing. "Not a human dropping, an animal one," shouted the headmaster. "Mr. Bunsen, the head of science, is studying it now to find out what animal it is from, but we suspect it to be some kind of rodent." Armitage wriggled and Zoe gulped. A rogue dropping must have plopped out unnoticed onto the toilet floor. "Stay very, very still, Armitage," thought Zoe. Unfortunately, Armitage was not a mind reader. "If any pupil considers it acceptable to bring a pet into this school, let me tell you, it is forbidden, strictly forbidden," pronounced the headmaster from the front of the class. It was funny seeing the two teachers stand next to each other for a moment. Such was the height difference. "Any pupil found smuggling an animal of any kind into school will be instantly suspended. That is all." With that, he turned and left the room. "Masterful! Goodbye, Mr. Grave," called Miss Midge after him. She watched him go, wistfully. Then she turned back to her pupils. "Right, you heard Mr. Grave. It is forbidden to bring pets into school." The kids all looked around at each other and started whispering. "Bring a pet into school?" Zoe could hear them saying to each other. "Who would be so stupid?" Zoe sat as still as she could, staring forward in silence. "Silence!" snarled Miss Midge, and there was silence. "It is not an opportunity to talk. Now, let's get back to the lesson. The Black Death." She underlined those 3 words on the board. "So, how did the incredibly deadly disease travel all the way from China to Europe? Anybody?" asked the teacher without turning around. She was one of those teachers who asked questions but didn't wait for answers. So a millisecond after posing the question, she herself answered it. "Nobody? Rats. Rats brought the fatal disease. Rats on board merchant ships." Zoe couldn't feel Armitage squirming around anymore and breathed a sigh of relief. He must have gone to sleep. "But it wasn't the rat's fault, was it?" blurted out Zoe, without putting her hand up. She couldn't believe her little friend's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents could be responsible for such incredible suffering. Armitage was far too sweet to hurt a soul. Miss Midge spun round on her heels, which, despite being high, still didn't make her even of medium height. "Did you speak, child?" she whispered, as if she was a witch incanting a spell. Yes, spluttered Zoe, now beginning to wish she had kept her mouth shut after all. "Forgive me, but I just wanted to say, Miss Midge, that you shouldn't really blame the rats for this terrible disease, as it wasn't their fault. It was the fleas catching a free ride on their backs that are really to blame." All the kids in the class were now looking at Zoe in disbelief. Despite this being a rough school and teachers often having to leave with nervous breakdowns, no one ever interrupted Miss Midge, especially not to spring to the defence of rats. The classroom fell deathly silent. Zoe looked around. Every pair of eyes in the room was now glaring at her. Most of the girls looked disgusted, and most of the boys were laughing. Then, suddenly, Zoe felt like she had a tremendous itchy itch on her head. Quite the itchiest itchy itch that had ever itched. It was, in a word, itch-tastic. "What on earth is that?" she wondered. "Zoe," sneered Miss Midge, now staring intently at exactly the place where Zoe had the itch on her head. "Yes, miss?" asked Zoe, perfectly innocently. "You have a rat on your head,"